Guys, welcome back. Episode 3. We are with Emanuel Zevallos with the little accent that neither one of us would really care that much about because we both speak decent Spanish, but not, well, you probably speak decent Spanish, but not me.
Yeah.
But anyway, dude, pumped to have you on the show because, I mean, just in the little bit that we've been jamming before, there's so many things that you have, the knowledge that you have that I want, and I think a lot of people want, especially if you're in Utah. And especially if you are a member of the predominant church in Utah, I'll say, I think there's a lot of things that will correlate, but also maybe expand people's vision, understanding. So let's just be the train going 60 miles an hour and jump right into it. And people want to come along, they got to jump too. So how did you get into it, man? So basically what it is, right? Let's get into what it is that you do. But it's like body code, energy stuff. Like, how did you get into that, man?
So the first thing is I always like to build a bridge with what everyone else probably knows. So there's other energy healing modalities like Reiki healing, theta healing. More popular in the more medical field, I would say hospitals do Reiki healing. Like it's actually like there's people are more open to that, probably more than anything else. There's a lot of celebrities that use it, sports people that use it. But it's just an energy healing modality created by Dr. Brad Nelson. He's actually here in St. George. And basically 2015, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Not sure if you've ever been there. But who hasn't been there, right? But I was there, and my relationship was upside down at the time, with my ex there, and finances were upside down. Didn't know what my mission was in life. I literally was just kind of down and out. And my mentor taught me, you should go read a book. Like whenever you're stuck, go read a book.
He just saw you had low energy.
Yeah, low energy.
He's like,
go drink some more caffeine. Yeah. But really, what it was is, I needed really some major changes because they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I was technically insane back in 2015, but what I wanted to do is change something inside of me because they say if you change your inner universe, then the outer universe changes with you. And so I wanted to read a new book, and I read a new book called The Emotion Code. Here's the funny part. Even though you'll see me make like 400 videos about this subject on YouTube, I actually picked up the book and dropped the book at least multiple times, which is kind of hard for other practitioners who look up to me. They go like, you couldn't have picked it up that many times. But the reason why is because I had this thing called the heart wall, which I'll tell you later on about what that is. But I had a heart wall, so I was very numb, desensitized, and I wouldn't know my mission if someone told it to me person to person. So I'm just reading this book and dropping it. But then I'm like, you know what? If this is real, this can change so many people's lives. And basically it's using applied kinesiology, just muscle testing. So putting pressure on your arm and asking certain questions. If you have a chiropractor, they're probably pushing on your arm and saying, let me check if there's an imbalance in your body. And they're like, they kind of move your arm. And if it's strong, it means yes. If it's weak, it goes no. And then what we do is we use a magnet to release these energies from your body, these emotional energies from your body.
Just crazy. And we were talking a little bit before that there's even ways that you will, because in your business, you're slaying it. You've gotten on YouTube. You've got a lot of followers on a lot of your social media channels. You're, I don't know how many hundred, at least over 100,000 followers together, but a couple hundred, maybe even, I don't know. I know we've talked about this a little bit, but you've built this business and you can actually have a video call with somebody. And this just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And use the magnets here in St. George. Be talking to somebody in Florida and you're releasing energy somewhere in their body in Florida.
Right. So it sounds really out there, but really, I even think about it like calling someone on the phone in India is kind of like, if we would say that in 1950s, it'd be really crazy. But really, if you're in quantum physics, what I do is actually very normal. It's called the quantum entanglement. And also Albert Einstein used to call it the long distance sort of like spooky effect. Like something happens here, but there's something also happening here at the same time simultaneously. I'll give you a good example. They had a PTSD in the Emotion Code book. It had an example of this PTSD veteran, and they put some of his cells into like a petri dish, and they would actually show him some traumatizing information. And then it would affect not only him, because you can see he's getting PTSD, but they would put these nodes on the petri dish, and then his cells would be affected by it as well. Then they would move the cells miles away, and then do the same effect. And at the same time he's being affected, the cells are being affected in a different place.
What?
Yeah. So what it is called proxy work. So proxy work means I'm doing something on your behalf. Now, the interesting thing is, we obviously use that in our church. We do like, proxy baptism,
sure.
So what it is, it's having the ability to do work on someone else's behalf. So if I were to do muscle testing, I would use my fingers, but I wouldn't do it to like figure out your lottery ticket or like what's the combination on your cell phone. I wouldn't do that. The only real purpose to do it is just to figure out like what's happening in your body. And it's a beautiful thing because it shows that, there's no boundaries to God's love, in my opinion. Like I should be able to work on a child in Africa who has depression and no one can help him. There's no limits to that. So it makes it easier for someone who's paralyzed, a dog, a baby. I can work on all of them and there's no really limit to it. So,
man, that is so crazy because I'm thinking like in the Bible, wasn't it
the centurion?
Was it the centurion? Yeah.
Yeah, the centurion who said, you don't have to, come back. You just say the word and it shall be healed.
Yeah.
And then Jesus is like, I've never seen faith like that in Israel. And then all of a sudden his centurion's healed. The same moment he said, go back home and your centurion or your servant is healed. That's basically long distance healing that he did.
Yeah. That's so crazy. Cause he's doing it at a massive scale, right?
Yeah,
he's doing it at a high level, we'll say the highest level you can think of.
Yeah.
But, he's even said like, hey, you have the faith of the size of a grain of a mustard seed.
Right.
You can do this too. Right. And I think we just don't understand enough of it. So it's almost like breaking into that spiritual, and you call it the quantum realm. And that to me is like, woo, over my head. I start to think about like Avengers and all stuff like that. But, but it's still interesting. It's fascinating. If you're okay with it, I'm curious to know your thoughts, right? Because you talk about these energies and you talk about, how they're stored in your body and how they can affect you. Is there any limit to what you can do to help somebody as a human being? Like, what are there limitations? Can you help what do you do on a daily basis?
Right. So I think we should kind of rewind a little bit and be like,
love it.
Let's talk about like how a trapped emotion's created. Because this is like the foundation is what is our body doing? Now, my personal thing is that schools should give us more education than just teaching us, A plus B equals C. They should be teaching us as how are we producing emotional energies, because we literally have a crisis emotionally on a global scale. People are having physical ailments all over the world, right? So I wish we would have learned this when we were a kid.
Yeah.
But what our body's producing.
Thinking about that, when you're talking about like, when we're a kid.
Yeah.
So is there any? Do you store stuff when you're a newborn baby?
Yeah. So great
Even
question.
in the womb. Let's start there, right?
Okay. So
conception almost.
Yeah. So basically, the answer to that is yes. You can absorb emotions if you're in the womb, even from your mom.
Wow.
That's why in China, they're kind of some cultures are a little ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because what they do is the mother knows that they are programming their baby early on, so they almost take like a sabbatical from their husband, just to be like, hey, let's keep drama out of this while the baby's in the oven. And I'm going to meditate more. I'm going to eat healthier food, because they know that if they feel anger, the baby might absorb it. And that's why a lot of children who come out like kind of bothered or perturbed or whatever, and they're age 4, and they're like, dude, you haven't even experienced life yet. Like, you're 4, It makes a lot more sense if they've absorbed stuff from the mother between the first and the third tramester.
Yeah.
And if they have inherited emotions from their great-great-great-great-grandfather who lost his farm, and that went all the way down to him to create panic in his body. And so anything in his life, it's almost like cancer cells, like, they're all kind of asleep or dormant in our body, but certain acidity in your body could activate the cancer cells, similar to a child who is, let's say 5 years old, feels fear for the first time, might wake up an inherited fear from his great-great-great-grandmother, and then now it's stronger in him than usual. So we have to deal with our generational trauma too.
So that brings up a thought in my mind that one of my coaches says all the time. And he says trauma is either transformed or transmitted.
Yeah.
And I think about like, okay, and let's keep going with your, we're kind of at the beginning, but at some point I would love to talk about, how do we transform it and not just be, it's transmitted? How can we change this? And how can we like make sure that we're using it for a good, not just being a victim of energy, right? But let's keep going on this path of, okay, we're in the womb, we have this energy, and now maybe we're 1, 2 years old or a toddler.
Yeah. So let's talk about maybe how, first of all, how trapped emotions get created, because I think that might be great for your listeners. Dr. Brad was a chiropractor first. So this started with a chiropractor who was working 20 years brick and mortar. And he used to do a prayer before he would meet with his clients. This is how it all started. He was just kind of asking for help. And he said when he did that, sometimes he would get these downloads of like how like what the person's dealing with. Yeah. And he says, okay, so I get that very sporadically. It's worth praying before I go meet with my client. And then he started asking different questions because a chiropractor can only go so far to assist you in your body. Like if you have some serious chronic diseases, you need some other type of profession helping you out. So he was asking for help. He's like, how could I help these people who have these chronic illnesses? So he started getting these downloads of how the body really works. And really what he got was that our organs are producing emotional energies the size of a tennis ball to a cantaloupe. And what happens is that that's why, like when you cry, for example, if you've noticed that like your faucet kind of turns off after a while, like all of a sudden you're just like, yeah, I'm done crying. It's like, all right, well, back to my day. Yeah, or if you get angry, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, I'm not angry anymore. It's like, all right. So in my mind, I always thought like there was like maybe some clock that turned it off. But really what Dr. Brad is saying is that it's an emotion the size of a tennis ball or cantaloupe being, let's say liver, for example, produces anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. That's why if someone drinks too much alcohol or too much caffeine, it's easy for them to feel anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment. So it gets processed through the body, this little ball of energy. But if it's too concentrated, it gets stuck in the body, and that creates multiple issues. So throughout the day, we're having these little spheres of energy just leave our body, and then sometimes they get stuck. And if they get stuck in the body, they can irritate the tissues, cause physical pain. For example, people who have fibromyalgia or some serious physical pain, a lot of it's just a lot of trapped emotions in the body stuck there. Doctors can't see it, but they're just irritating the tissues. And so that's one thing that also makes you very reactive, So for example, if you absorbed an energy from your dad, like your dad released it, but you were next to your dad and you got anger, now it's easy for you to feel anger all the time because you absorbed it from your father, and it can give you like headaches, Crohn's disease, ADHD. A lot of the symptoms that we're labeling is really just 80% of it's just emotional.
So do you think this is why when people say like you are the sum of the 5 closest people that you hang around, like how much of that do you think has to do with energy?
It's totally true. Yeah, because for a couple of reasons. Number one is when you meet someone, let's say like you and I just met, if we become good friends, right? Because you seem like a cool guy and you got a cool hat. I mean, you're pretty cool. So let's say we create a chord with each other. The problem is that sometimes these chords don't benefit us. For example, let's say you and I got into a scuffle. These chords will start heart to heart with us first, but then they might move gut to gut. And gut's where all your emotions are kind of being brewed. Like your stomach produces one emotion, your liver produces one emotion. So you might be having a bad day and then I'm having a good day, but then for some reason I feel off. It's because you and I are corded together, That's why like if a child gets into an accident somewhere and the mom wakes up at 3 a.m., for some reason she felt something, she's corded to her son. So she felt that shock go through that cord and then it wakes up the mom going like, something's wrong, I don't know what it is. So that's that cord.
That's so crazy. But I felt that with my wife in a lot of ways, right? Like, it's like something's wrong with her.
Yeah, there's something going on.
And she's not even there, but you like know, and you hear stories of this, and then it sounds woo woo. Like people are like, "Well, how could I know?" It's like, and then we have terminology for it. Well, it was the spirit, or it was, it was and this,
it could
or it was
be that too. Like I don't kind of close that door that it might be the spirit telling you, "Hey, and then usually with the Holy Ghost, in my own experience, everyone can experience it their own way. It's more of like, you never hear a question mark at the end of the Holy Ghost. It's more of like a statement or like do something. Sure. So that's kind of like, if I'm questioning it, it's usually me questioning, going like, should I do this? And it's like my own intuition trying to figure it out. Wow. So that, but whenever it's a direct statement, I'm like, okay, that's something else. And I wouldn't have thought of that, But anyway, the cord, you can disconnect the cord, and it's actually better for couples to not have a cord because you don't want to actually have emotional sovereignty over yourself.
So how do you do that though?
Yeah. So
because you're intimate, right? Yeah. So, and you want to be intimate, you want to be one, you want to be connected.
Yeah.
But you just said sever a cord, but then it's an emotional cord that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Right. So the cord, well, that actually takes about 2 seconds in a body code session. I would just remove it. Yeah, it doesn't take long at all, actually.
Really?
Yeah. But another thing too is, you were talking about those 5 people that you associate
Yeah.
with. Yeah, you can absorb their energies as well. So if someone's feeling unworthy in their life and you hang around them long enough, you probably already have a cord with them and you probably absorb their unworthy from them. So you start feeling what everybody else feels, and so you have to be very careful who you associate with. I always tell people, associate with people who have your solutions, not your problems.
Yeah. Man. So I'm thinking this right after you say that. I've heard you say that different emotions have a different like level of frequency. Let's call it like you said like from 0 to 1,000.
Right.
So if love, or what was the top one that you were saying?
It was like peace, enlightenment. There's like
enlightenment was the word that you used. Yeah. It's like way up there.
Yeah.
Negative emotions are low on the energy scale, but do we translate that into the power and effect that they have? Or my question, I think, is a weird question, but if I want to make sure that no matter what, like I'm trying to just stay in that positive, enlightened mood.
Sure.
How do I, by saying things, by saying words, by thinking things, does that reject the negative, or how do I stay in that flow state?
Yeah. So it is true that the first 10 minutes when you wake up, that's the easiest for you to program stuff in your mind. So, but most people wake up and the first thing they start doing is they go on their phone, or they start worrying about things, or they start kind of feeling overwhelmed and they haven't even started their day yet, So one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you're thinking positive thoughts, and you can do that with affirmations. So affirmations work, or visualizing kind of what you want to see. But one of the things that my wife has, which is really powerful, and it sounds very Star Trekky, so get ready for this one. But basically, she has a biofeedback technology. It looks like a cell phone, but it's like a military grade cell phone. And what it does is it actually has this CIA technology in it, or like lie detector technology, but it can read about 8,000 frequencies from your voice, and it tells you which emotions you overuse and which ones you suppress, and how it's affecting your body. So what I do in the morning when I wake up,
scary.
I know it's
like,
really,
do I really want to take that?
Yes, no. But what I do is I go in there and I say, hey, my name is, one of the most powerful statements you can say is the phrase I am.
I am.
Yeah. So I say, I am Emanuel, and I'm having a great day. I can't wait to work with some clients. So I'm doing this, and I do it for about 12 seconds. And then it starts doing this read. And it also tells me like if I'm dealing with parasites, it does like a mini vital scan on my body. But the best part about it is that it actually gives me a binaural beat meditation, which is custom fit for what the reading says on the machine. So it's like you can go online and go on YouTube and find binaural beats. And yes, that could be helpful for you. And solfeggio frequencies, they could be helpful. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is what's custom fit for you. So if you're kind of feeling a more conditional love than unconditional love, it'll show up on the readout. If it's showing more pride and more open-mindedness, it'll show out in the readout. And then it's trying to emotionally stabilize you within 15 minutes with the recording that it sends you. So that's a great way to start the day. Is like, usually you don't wake up with like emotional homeostasis. You're kind of, you could be off from a dream that you just had.
Yeah.
Boom, you start thinking about your schedule. Then your wife's not there. There's just a bunch of stuff that's happening. Your body's already out of balance. And Chinese medicine, that's all they care about. The word is just balance. Are you balanced or not?
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that's one thing I do for in the morning time is program my body to get used to get back to emotional homeostasis. And if you do it enough, it starts doing it itself. And that's what you want to do.
So you kind of start that day, coming back to my question a little bit, like how do you block out the negative? It starts in the morning. It starts in the morning where you get that, you're building an armor maybe a little bit.
Yep.
Would you say that's fair?
I would totally say that's fair. In fact, it's almost like the more you start increasing in frequency, your body starts getting used to being at higher levels. It's almost like, when you put a homeless person like in a very clean home that's all white, they're going to feel actually the bottom of the pyramid, which is guilt and shame. That's like the lowest frequency is actually guilt and shame, which is where like Satan wants you to like feel it forever, and that's how they attack you, too much guilt, too much shame. There's healthy guilt for you to like repent and then for you to come back,
So you're not a narcissist.
You're not a narcissist. Yeah. If you're not feeling any guilt and shame, I'm going to have to tell you you're a narcissist and we have to work on you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's kind of interesting that I rarely work on narcissists because they don't become my client. They're not open-minded enough because guess what they think? Their partner is the problem.
Sure.
Yeah. So I always work with the partner who's usually the empath being attacked by a narcissist. Yeah. But anyway, the point is that you're right. If you can, for example, there's a couple things that can give you 500 or higher frequency. The purring of a cat. So we bought a cat recently, so they purrs all around. Like Mozart music, like really high frequency music, because those are inspired music from like downloads.
So there really is something to it.
There is, yeah. Besides increasing IQ, which I heard it does, and it also helps you with studying and stuff. But it also increases frequency too. Going to actually beautiful cathedrals and visiting them, like if you go see Michelangelo thing, that's actually very high frequency. You can change your frequency. Even if you had a bad day of guilt and shame, if you walk into that cathedral, it can flip you around within seconds. Mama's cookies, mama making you cookies, also very high on the frequency. Yeah, because it's with her love that she gives cookies. You know how it is. The kitchen changes when mama makes cookies. It's not.
So for me, that just trying to always stay in shape, as long as it's mama's cookies, the calories just don't go the same.
Yeah, we can get some protein cookies in there. I don't know. We could figure something out, so it's like in between a little bit. But yeah,
that's awesome though. It makes sense that we're just these. I mean, I've always felt like there is an energy.
Yeah.
And I felt very uneducated. And that's one of the reasons why I'm pumped to have you here and to be able to provide this value to other people. But I've always had this feeling like there is energy all around us. We just can't see it. In fact, in a lot of the scriptures that we talk about in the LDS culture, we talk about this intelligence.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? We talk about this intelligence that's around us that we can't see. I think it's DNC 130, 131, somewhere in there.
Yep.
And it talks about how we can't yet see it, but once our bodies are purified,
right.
It talks about our eyes a little bit and talks about how once we're purified, we will see it.
Right.
And it kind of goes into it and then cuts it off.
Right.
I've always thought that scripture is so interesting. And I think that's where this energy field idea started to come to my mind, right. But you've just dove into it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, one of the things that, just to kind of prove that, Jesus, like a little situation where you see him kind of shifting the room a little bit. We just talked about how you can shift the room with music or like someone bringing cookies. He healed Jairus's daughter, Jairus's daughter. But do you remember what he did before he did that? He got rid of the mourning people and said, like, you guys need to leave. Right, because they were lowering the frequency of the
frequency
room.
In the room.
Yeah, so he says, you guys need to go. In order for this to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, in order for this to work, we need everyone to have faith in what I'm about to do right now. Wow. Yeah, so he was like a walking model. And also, too, very, very clearly, someone touches the helm of, Jesus's clothing. The woman who had the 20, 30 years of blood issues, and touches his clothing, and all of a sudden he says, "Who's touched me?" Like my energy, some energy left me. Yeah, I mean it's in the scriptures there. Yeah, you just have to kind of like deeply look into it.
And I think everything like this is vocabulary, right? And language has been diluted for, thousands of years, right?
Right.
And so maybe there were words that, like, we'll go back to how we started this thing, English and Spanish, right? Like when we were talking before, even. Yeah. There's words in Spanish that don't, but vice versa in the two languages.
Yep.
But we're trying to understand these scriptures that were written thousands of years ago.
That's a big problem. I always tell people, I'm like, the biggest issue with us reading the scriptures is that we're looking at through millennium eyes, like 2000, when it's like way back in the day, number one. And number two is that it was, Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek.
Just in the translation, not just generational, but also in the translation.
Right.
There's going to be some telephone, like playing that game telephone. There's going to be a lot of stuff.
A lot of telephone. I think like Joseph Smith brought up the word, create. He said it's bara, which means to organize. And so most, I would say 90% of Christians believe that it came out of ex nihilo, which means Earth just came to be, like just boom out of nowhere, right? And the scientists have problem with that, like all scientists, But if we were to tell scientists, like, it's not ex nihilo, it's God organized different parts, like use different parts of the universe to create this Earth, then it makes more sense why we see an Earth that it's like 1,000,000-year-old rock, That makes more sense because that rock was probably from somewhere else. It's not from here, right. You see? So just that one word, created, it really means to organize. God's not a creator. He's more of an organizer. He organizes things.
And you're blowing my mind right now because it's like the very first part of the Bible
is,
basically he's talking about like God's basically, what does he say? First in Genesis, it's like, I'm a creator.
Yep.
Like, in the beginning, it's like, I'm a creator and I am the creator.
Right.
I created all this stuff. He could have said that I am, though, this is my name. That's my name. I like to do this. No, I'm a creator.
Right.
Right. I created man. I created earth. I created all these things. And I think about when we start talking about like the power of word. And I'm trying to connect all these thoughts that you just blew. You know how your mind just thinks at 1,000,000 miles an hour? Yep. You blew my mind because it's like the power of your words we talked about, and just before this, and now to bring it up now, like you could say the word Jesus Christ, even in a negative way.
Yeah.
And that will be on the scale that you said of 0 to 1,000. It'll still hit at 700. Like It's one of the highest names that you can say. Anybody can say it, even negatively.
Yeah.
And it's going to bring something, bring an energy into the room. Just by saying Jesus Christ. Yeah. Well, I think now going full circle with what we're talking about, how, language has been diluted. And if we believe in the Tower of Babel, and we talk about how everybody, the language was disrupted back then, and we believe in that, if you had a pure language where they had this energy frequency, right. And I don't know if I'm speaking...
The Adamic language.
Okay, there you go.
The Adamic language that like Enoch had.
Exactly.
There's
a pure language that had a higher form of energy that you literally, God spoke things into existence. Right. That's kind of what you're... do you believe in that? I mean, it seems to go in...
So just to...
be in harmony.
To almost sum up what you just said, which was really powerful. I'm glad you brought that up. Is that language is very powerful because that was the beginning of creation. It was that God was using words, but the fall happened not only with Adam and Eve, but our language continues to fall, So our language, the highest form of language was the Adamic language, and only some people kept it. It was the Jaredites. It was the Enoch. And Enoch, if you look at more of the Joseph Smith translation, that guy had a very powerful language that people called him a crazy man. Like he was moving mountains. Like he was with his voice, and we've lost that. It's like, it's almost like I always talk about like, it goes to English, it goes to slang. And it's like, it's just, we're like losing the highest quality,
Yeah.
And it's sad, but that's, and then also what Satan also doing too, is Satan's making words easier on our ear so that we don't call it a sin anymore. So for example, instead of prostitute, it's like escort, or it's if you're into bestiality, it's more open-minded. It's like he'll change things so that we become more susceptible to evil. Yeah, so that's another thing that's happening right now.
I mean, we did it in the sales world all the time.
Yeah,
summer sales, go knock on doors. So you didn't want to say certain words because it brings an energy. Yeah. So like pest control is what I sold, right? You used to say, we don't kill the bugs, we take care of, right?
Right.
We take care of the bugs.
It's a big difference.
The same idea. It's a huge difference. It brings an emotional response.
Right.
But yeah, what we're talking about is that like if you had the pure language, you're literally just
very strong.
We call it spit and fire, right?
Like fire,
everywhere.
And also too, if you said the word kill and I said put out your arm right now, your arm would be very weak. And if you said the word love or unconditional love, your arm would be very strong. Yeah, and so that also goes back to, I don't know if you're familiar with like Masaru Emoto's work. Have you heard of him? Mm-hmm. So Masaru Emoto was this Japanese scientist, and what he found out is that if you take water and you put a word on it and you flash freeze the water, there will be certain crystals that get created due to whatever word is on it. So for example, if I put love like on a sticker here, put love, and then they flash freeze it, according to him in his 20 years of research, love and gratitude is the most beautiful crystal. But if you put something like I hate you or Hitler or damn you, it's this weird looking deformed crystal. Yeah. And they even did it with prayer too. Sometimes they, and we're obviously 70 to 80% water. So what you say and what you wear is actually affecting your body more than you know. So he, this is kind of cool, in a lake that they went to, a bunch of sort of wars were on that lake. And these people came together to pray together, about 8 to 10 people. And they took a scoop of it before and they flash froze it. And they took a scoop of it after the prayer, and the water was already changing. It was creating crystals in the water. And these look like cool little snowflakes. Yeah. So what you say does affect someone's body, does affect the atmosphere and everything, but the water even proves that it holds the information. So thought that was pretty interesting.
That is insane. Yeah. I'm thinking, okay, we speak it out loud. What about our thoughts?
Yeah, our thoughts too.
Because here's the interesting thing about thoughts. I mean, I'm already so into this. We need to have like 3 episodes of this because we could probably do 10 with the knowledge that you have and how interested I am in this. And I also feel like people need this stuff. But I'm thinking about, okay, power of thought. I personally believe, and I would also be open to you changing my mind on this, but we're not our thoughts, because thoughts are just going to be autonomic a lot of the times.
Sure.
And they're going to pop in, and then I almost try to kind of like say something out loud. Like if a thought comes in that I don't want there, I almost will try to say that out loud, because then I'm separating myself from the thought and not judging the thought or judging me that I had the thought, but trying to like distance myself from it, like disassociate it if I don't want it there.
Right.
But how do you view thoughts? Like they're going to come in. How do they have an effect on us, or how do they have an effect on others?
Great question. So with thoughts, Brigham Young once said that, a negative thought is like, it's from the devil and send it back to hell where it came from. He said that once. But what's interesting is that I think one of the things that should be kind of common term in society is a word called post-hypnotic suggestion. So
say that again.
It's called a post-hypnotic suggestion. So what that is, it's like a hypnotized statement. So for example, let's say your mother would say these certain things to you all the time when you were a little kid, like, okay, before you go outside, like put your sweater because you're not safe.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, hey, go to school. It's like, but you're not safe. Like, so your mind will actually start recording and go, I'm not safe. See? So then out of that negative subconscious thought, you'll actually start creating conscious thoughts on top of it. So the seed was the mother programming, or the music, for example, track 6 of In Utero Nirvana of like, I think I'm dumb, I think I'm dumb, I think I'm dumb. If you like that song, be careful, because your subconscious will say, you are dumb, or I am dumb.
That's so crazy. I've thought that before in music since I was young in high school. When it would say stuff like that,
repeated,
I'll turn it off. When I hear music now that talks about breakups, I turn it off.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if that's weird, but like I love my wife. I want to stay with my wife. And I don't know if it's just me like going too far, but I literally am like, I don't want to listen to this because I want no part of it.
Okay. So post-hypnotic suggestions can come from music, can come from a repeated negative person, can come from entities. And this is what I want to share with you. This will kind of really bridge in what you were saying. Probably 2 things you just talked about. So in the Bible, it never talks about that entities can actually hear our thoughts. There's not one verse that talks about how demons or evil spirits can hear our thoughts. The only one that knows our heart and our thoughts is God.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so that's why sometimes it's cool to pray in private, like inside your mind, because they can't hear you. But here's the sad part, is that they don't have to hear your prayer because they see your actions.
See it.
Yeah, so they witness what you do. If there's fights in the house, they don't have to know about your prayer. They just look at you, and they've been studying us for years.
Yes.
So that's why Joseph,
almost like they can sense that energy and they see it.
Yeah. And then so Joseph Smith said, he says that we're only saved as fast as the knowledge that we acquire. We have to know, like, what playing field are we really playing in, And that's kind of the problem with like people who say the devil doesn't exist, is because they actually are not realizing how much the war is affecting them. Like we went from a spiritual war back before we were born, and then it's just a different playground here. It says in the book of Revelations, there was a war in heaven. It's like, so the only thing that's changed is just the location. We're here on earth. It was somewhere else last time. But here it's just like there's a whole war going on. And what's interesting is they'll look at you. Let's say, for example, your wife is making you feel less than. And they see a commonality. They look at you going like, oh, she always treats him badly, So then they'll say, what can we put in his head to program so that he feels this makes it worse? And they divorce because we hate families. So then it'll be like, I'm unworthy of you. Okay, that's your post-hypnotic suggestion. You might be asleep in bed, not to make you think this is creepy, but they'll whisper it into your ear where you like finally you wake up, you're just like, yeah, maybe I'm not worthy of her anymore. And you'll think that's your own thought. But it's not. It's just them implanting it, and then you make your own conscious thoughts on top of it. And so that's where you get in trouble. So I remove those from people all the time. I'll be like, you have a post-hypnotic suggestion, and it came from, is it music? Is it on a muscle test? Is it music? Is it family? Is it inherited? Is it from an entity? And I have to figure out where it came from and remove it. And then their thoughts change.
Interesting. Yeah. So what you're suggesting is that, they can't know your thoughts, but they will try to implant thoughts
Exactly.
Somehow through.
And why would they do that? Because they see our action. Because we came here on earth. Our biggest sort of handicap in some ways is that we have a veil, that we don't remember where we came from. Sure. We don't know, we're creations of God. So they don't have a veil. They came, the 1/3 children just came down here. They just see our actions and go like, we've been studying humankind for thousands of years. Yeah. We know what's happening in this house. We know this kid who has low self-esteem. He's depressed. We'll lead him to suicide. We know this, like this.
Absolutely.
It's like we just repeat ourselves.
I don't remember who said it, but they said the exact same thing that you're saying. It was a prophet or an apostle that basically said, Satan isn't Satan because he's smart, just because he is smart. It's because he's old.
Yeah.
He's been around for a long time. He's been able to study this for a long time.
Exactly. So they've studied us to the point where they're like, we could actually implant negative thoughts in their heads and they'll believe it after.
It's like AI times 1,000,000, right? Like because they have so much data.
Yeah, so much data just accumulated over time. And so, I mean, I almost feel like it's kind of sad to say this. And if any of your listeners are dealing with suicidal thoughts, there's a really great book. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think something like, it's called Imagine Heaven. Imagine Heaven. It's a really great book. In fact, our faith, I don't know if you know this, but we're really big on near-death experiences. Like we're probably the biggest collector of near-death experiences, which prove the validity of something on the other side. But what's interesting is that most people that are suicidal don't know that it's a gang-related issue on the evil side. What I'm trying to say is that the biggest surprise to the person who crosses over after their death, after their suicide, would be, who are you people around me? That would be their biggest surprise, because that means it all started with maybe the parents giving them post-hypnotic suggestions, right? These negative statements. Yeah. And what they do is it makes you feel moody, makes you have negative thinking. Yeah. It makes you feel dark thoughts. See, so that's how it starts. Then when you have enough of those, guess what they want to do to you? They want to attach to you. And when they attach to you, you feel more suicidal. You have nightmares. You start going, and then you get addicted to things. You start going down this down track. Yeah. And they're trying to push you to the edge. And so then when you cross over, you'll look around, you'll be like, oh my, I finally have relief of my life. I'm dead. But then when they come over, they're like, whoa, who are you 3-4 entities that are around me? That's what they'll find when they go to the side. It's because they've been working for a while. They're patient over there. Not to freak anybody out, but I want you to know that if you are suicidal, there's things outside of you that you can't see, things inside of you that you can't see. Yeah. But you can remove both of them. And then your real true version of yourself is inside. And it's beautiful. It's powerful, because I think a lot of suicidal people, they think like this is me, this is who I am, and I'm the only one that feels this way. And it's not. It's like there's millions of children of God that feel this way. And there's things that are attacking them from the outside and things that are inside that are inherited or absorbed or they felt, and they're in a constant battle. But if you don't get your knowledge that that's happening, you're a victim.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're talking about that, you say like, this is who I am. And we talked about how I am is one of the most powerful phrases that you can say. I believe that for a long time. And I've always felt like, the phrase I am, you're creating something spiritually just by saying that phrase, right?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Within yourself. You could say I am an astronaut and post about it on your social media channels, and everybody eventually is going to believe it if you stay consistent. But some right off the bat are going to believe that you're an astronaut.
Right.
Right. And I mean that you say something like I am now choosing to be an astronaut.
Right.
And then based on your actions that follow, like if you go to NASA and you go learn and you post on that stuff, people will just say, yeah, they're an astronaut. And then it's reinforced in your mind.
Right.
And so, yeah, we can create our own life and who we are just by saying that. I am a millionaire. I am happy. I am loved. I am healthy. There's so many powerful things there. Mm-hmm. And I've always believed that. But what you teach is just like, it just like gives it a science, or like that's why it is so powerful, and which I love.
Yeah. And on top of that, what you said is when you say I am statements or you say affirmations, what's really interesting is that if let's say you wanted to say, let's say you're shy, or maybe one of your listeners struggles with confidence, So what I would tell this woman who's kind of like, I want to be a successful entrepreneur woman, right? But I lack confidence to make videos. Okay, great. So just say, I would tell the woman, go ahead, stand up real quick and say, I am a confident, successful businesswoman. And then I would say, put out your arm real quick, and I'd push it and her arm would go down.
Down because she didn't believe it.
Yeah. So watch this. Now what's really cool is just a thing called attunement. This is a key word I would remember, because there's this saying that I learned once, and it's like, everything that's wrong with your life is just an energetic misalignment. Okay. I'll say it again. Everything that's wrong with your life is an energetic misalignment. And what I mean by that is that you could say a statement, and you can ask your body how much it believes it to the decimal point. Yeah. So you can say, for example, well, how much do you believe that you're a confident woman? Like 90%, 80%, 40. So then I'd be like, oh, you're at 27.3946%. Okay. So now I'm going to use the body code and go into my system and raise you to 100. All of a sudden, guess what that woman does? Super confident. So the people who are out there that have built their life on affirmations and they're winning in life, dude, major kudos.
These are your pro athletes. These are your business.
And I want to give them major kudos, but they could have done it even half the time if someone would have helped them to believe it when they said it.
Yeah.
And that's what the body code does. The body code says, how much do you believe something? And then let's get it to 100%. And then now all of a sudden they're exuding it. All of a sudden. Wow. Yeah. So that's called an attunement. So you can make any statement you want. I'm a more loving husband, 36%. It's easy for me to stay on task, 19%. So you just move it all of a sudden. So that's why I can work. If I were to go into a big company and be like, tell me who's scared of making phone calls. Tell me who's scared of going on stage. Tell me, whatever. I'm like, what do you want to believe? I want to believe this. Well, let's see how much your body believes. And I will show them with their own arm proof how much their body believes and be like, that's why you're not good at that. And it's usually trauma from their childhood, inherited, post-hypnotic suggestion. And if you remove enough of those, all of a sudden the body's like, okay, now I'm strong. I believe it 100%. And then boom, they just start doing really well.
So then, you talk about magnets, and we're talking about like how to get them to believe it a little bit. Like, let's dive into that. Like, I know so many people listening right now are going, yeah, that's my problem. Like that 100% is what I struggle with, because that's the natural man in us, or that's our natural way to go. We have so much pulling us that way, I feel like. And so, as you're talking, I'm thinking, the power of words is really coming up in my mind. And something that I like to do is I like to have a gratitude journal, and I write down gratitude. One of the things that I need to be better at is affirmations. I've had periods of my life where I've been good at writing down affirmations.
Right.
Currently, I could be a lot better at writing down my affirmations. Right. But as you're talking about this in the power of your word and what you tell your subconscious mind, which I've always been a believer in that.
Right.
There's your subconscious mind. Like, one of the things I say all the time is the quality of the soundtrack that you play in your mind will determine the quality of your life.
Right.
And so what are your soundtracks? And we need to actually know what those are.
Yeah.
So anyway, how do we change that is really my question. How do we get to where this is really where I want to be, and what kind of work can we do?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about someone who is struggling with finances. Let's just do that. Because I think most people, they say the average American has, negative $300 in their bank account. Like, we're not doing that great.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Negative, right?
I know.
Yeah. So the, but
I thought it would be worse.
How do we change that? Well, the first thing is, let's say someone's like, Emanuel, I want to become wealthy. And I've helped people go from 6 figures to 7 figures, 7 figures to 8 figures. How did I do that? Is number one is, do you feel safe with financial abundance? Most people's arms, even people who are millionaires, actually will put their arm down. And the reason why is because there's so much trauma to acquire the wealth. They've created trapped emotions, despair anchors, post-hypnotic suggestions, all these different things. Weapons that are in your body, like energetic weapons of people who have stabbed you in the back. Actually, you have a physical or energetic weapon in your body due to the fact that you were trying to acquire wealth. So your body's like, we don't do wealth anymore. Like, do you know how much trauma you've produced to acquire wealth? So we have to make now you're walking around with your arms closed when your arms should be open, trying to like acquire gold. Yeah. So I help people. I'm like, okay, so your body says no, you don't feel safe. What can we do? So I start going in the charts and start removing stuff from them. And I use a magnet on myself, or if they're in person, I use a magnet on their back. Okay. Then we release it, I confirm it, and we move on. At some point, it'll say, I do feel safe with financial wealth. Then the fun start happens. You can say like, what's a goal you have? How much time do you want to put into it? And what do you want to preserve no matter how busy you get? That's called a goal attunement. So you probably have a monthly income in your head. You're like, okay, so you can think about it right now, like monthly income. Okay, what would that be? Okay, great. How much time do you want to put into it? Say like 30 hours a week. Okay, got that. And then what do you want to preserve? Yoga with my wife, time with my kids, and my self-development.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then I would ask your body, how much do you believe that? And it goes, oh, look, 56%. Move it to 100%, all of a sudden, boom, you're like hitting your goals every single month. Yeah. There's a really crazy thing that I got to tell you about, which is called the heart wall. And this is
heart wall.
The heart wall, yeah. So this is the greatest discovery in energy healing history, and you're hearing it right here on your podcast. So this
is going to be a real, guys, by the way.
Okay, so the heart wall is basically every time your heart feels pain or it feels discomfort, or it feels heavy. Maybe you broke up with your partner, or something happens where you get excommunicated from your faith. Whatever, something happens where your heart feels heavy. We're actually very close to this thing called broken heart syndrome, BHS, which means that your heart will actually collapse and it'll break because of the tendons inside the heart.
Physically.
Yeah.
Actually.
This is a real thing. Yeah. This is a real thing. Yeah. So like your tendons inside your heart are being stretched to the point where due to trauma that it'll collapse and your heart will just kind of fall in. People die of it. What Dr. Brad found out is that your body will borrow a trapped emotion and place it over the heart to protect your heart from breaking. And you're stacking these ever since you're in the womb. You're just stacking them. You're making this wall. And it protects.
And this is trauma. This is like negative emotions.
For example, let's say you're at 5 years old, you're frustrated with school. You'll create a frustration heart wall.
It's a callus. It's callus.
Yeah. But the problem is this: now you're like in an energetic bunker. You're like try to experience a beautiful forest, but you're like in a bomb bunker. It's like you're not feeling life like you used to anymore. That's why when people say, I know millionaires that are not happy, I can actually tell you straightforward why they're not happy. It's because they've built these walls over time. To get to success, they had to get cheated by a partner. Their firm blew up. They went bankrupt 3 times. They are producing massive amounts of heart walls. You're producing these heart walls. Yeah. So by the time you get to your beautiful house, you can't even enjoy it because you just feel numb.
Yeah.
So here are the 5 symptoms of the heart wall. Number 1 is low immune system and low energy. So all of a sudden your body's not working like it used to. You just have low energy all the time. Number 2 is lack of clarity of your mission. Like you're like, what am I supposed to be? Am I supposed to be doing something else? Is this what I'm really supposed to be doing? It's kind of like this fog of like, what am I supposed to do? The third thing is when people give you love and affection, you're like, I see it. I just don't feel it like I used to. Like when I was a kid, I used to feel love differently. Fourth one is your love language gets kind of mixed up. So like whenever, like how many times you maybe talk to your partner, you say something and they hear something different. And you're like, honey, I didn't mean that. Like, oh, you're being rude. I'm not being rude. Like this weird, awkward thing. In your mind, you think it's her having a bad day. It's your heart sending mixed messages to people. So relationships are like really hard. Then the fifth one is it blocks your abundance. Plus it gives you depression, anxiety, and triggers too. So that's like 8 things this heart wall does. And 93% of society, muscle tested, have them. So they're walking around with heart walls going like, I don't know what my mission is. And like, I don't know why money is like not hard. And why are relationships hard? It's because they're in this bunker. And I've cleared over 4,000 of these things. And I've seen PTSD veterans completely change. Like we had a pro bono thing because I used to go to military school, and some of the people that need this work more than ever are PTSD veterans because they basically gave us our freedoms, but they're treated like the lowest class in society, which is not right. So I went out there and I'm like, I'm giving you guys 6 sessions. I'm giving you guys 12 sessions for free. And they would stop alcoholism. They would stop drug addiction. They would not be suicidal. They would get along with their partners more. It's just because they were in a bunker still, So even though they left the military, they were still in a bomb shelter. That's what was going on.
Holy cow. As you're talking, I'm thinking about PTSD. I'm thinking about veterans. And I start to think, hey, you're healing them, and you're basically just like these heart walls that you're talking about or whatever, right? I'm looking at them as like you just calloused experiences from life, trauma. How do you feel about, and I'm sure you've had people in addictions, several different kinds of addictions.
Yeah.
That you probably work with. I'm assuming this. Yes.
Yep,
okay.
Definitely.
How do you help people that have had addictions come in and relieve themselves? What's the science behind that when we're talking about energy?
That's a great question. So most addiction...
You make me feel good every time you say that. So yeah, keep saying that. That's a great question. Thank you.
Fantastic question. I'm glad you asked that.
That must be on the scale like 500 somewhere because it makes you feel so good.
We're trying to get to the 600. So I got to change my vocabulary. So with addictions, there's actually an energy. It's kind of crazy. An energy that comes when you start creating a heart wall. So when you create a heart wall, one of the first feelings you start getting is more and more desensitized. You just don't feel anything anymore. Very past feeling, So your body will try to find a way to make you feel. And there's a kind of like they call it almost like a black hole energy in your body. And it's called seeking heart energy. Okay. And what this does is it's trying to compensate. It kind of makes you kind of addicted to things. It makes you kind of like, if you're like addicted to the gym, if you don't go to the gym, it's like, I feel guilt. It's like I'm addicted to yelling at people on the traffic. Because if I don't, then it's like, I don't feel like myself. It's like that's an actual energy called seeking heart energy. And the only people that get those are people who have heart walls. So if you have a heart wall, you've probably produced this thing called seeking heart. So when I work with people, I always check, do you have one? And if I have one, that automatically...
And 90, what'd you say, 93%?
Yeah.
Have them. So you're kind of...
There's a high probability you do have
they're
them.
very high.
Yeah. And so when you release that, all of a sudden their addiction goes down. But also there could be other things. For example, some people, when you drink a lot of alcohol, let's say you have an alcohol problem, it could be seeking heart energy. If you have depression and anxiety and triggers, you probably are more prone to like drown your sorrows away. You see, so the heart wall is causing you problems. Like you need to I love saying this. It's like, how can we get you to when you were a kid feeling the rainbows like you used to feel the rainbows, the way the day was brighter, And I always ask adults all the time, hey, what changed that you don't feel that way anymore? This is what they always tell me. Well, I got responsibilities now. I got a house. I got a job. I got a girl. It's like, so they think that their maturity level, like with their adulthood, is what brought them their non-feelingness anymore. And I go, no, it's because you've stacked heart walls. And you're not like you used to be when you were 4. You had like probably a few little heart walls, but you still felt more from life, So it's almost like the sun goes dimmer, as you start stacking these things.
Yeah.
But one of the things, so definitely when you start feeling your wife's love more, you feel less anxiety, depression. You're not going to want to go for the drink anymore because you're just like, I'm feeling more from life the way I used to feel. Yeah. So that's one thing. Second thing too, like we're all dealing with pathogens, So like, for example, like parasites, fungal infections, stuff like that. We're all dealing with it usually. 80% of Americans have parasites. I mean, it's just this the way it is. But fungal infection, which is pretty common, you have addiction to starch and alcohol. See, so some people that I work with, I'll remove their heart wall, I'll remove their seeking heart energy, but they're still addicted. I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I check, I'm like, oh, you have a fungal pathogen in your body. You need to take neem leaf. You have to like remove it from you. All of a sudden, boom, they're not addicted to alcohol. It was more of something that their fungus was trying to, you feed it basically by giving it sugar and alcohol and things.
Talking about fungus like inside the gut. Or
the gut, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it could be a pathogen in the body that they feed off sugar or feed off starch or feed off alcohol. So you think you're addicted to it, but it's actually a pathogen inside of you that's just like, feed me to keep me alive.
How deep have you gone into like food and health and stuff like that? Because I feel like it's so closely related. If you feel good, then you maybe naturally will have more positive thoughts, which then would just be this continuous loop, essentially, right? Of like getting higher, like just better and better quality thoughts.
Yeah. So I think health is wealth, and if you're a big health person, then you need to know the body code, somehow do it on yourself or have someone else. Yeah, you got to do both because. For example, I'll work on people who they want to lose weight. And first of all, I'll ask them a funny question, which is, do you feel safe to lose weight? And guess what most of the answer is? It's no, because there's trauma behind me trying to get my weight off and it's not working. You're creating all these different type of energies. So I make them feel safe first. Another reason why, women mainly don't feel safe losing weight is because who they attracted when they had the exact weight that they wanted. So, for example, they were 19 years old. They attracted a narcissist to their life. That's when they were at their ideal weight. And now they've gone through so much trauma with that narcissist. And then when the narcissist left, they gained some weight. Then they're there. They're like, oh, I want to lose weight again. And the body's like, no. It's like, look what you attracted at that age. We're going to do everything in our power to sabotage your results because we don't want to attract that person in your life.
Yes.
So that's another added thing. So I have to ask people, do you feel safe with losing weight? If it says yes, then I go into other stuff like their gallbladder's not working, their thyroid's not working. There's different parts of their body that are not allowing to absorb the body fat, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, the question going back to it, like with health and thoughts, and then what you just said, I'm thinking in my mind, yes, it's so important, but I would agree with you that like that energy and the quality of your thoughts and what you're attracting, that to me is almost like you know, it kind of starts here, but then it's got to come here, and that's what like pushes it out almost. It's like, maybe it doesn't even start here, but it's like that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss, and a lot of people don't even get to the nutrition.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
You think about some of the most depressed people. I mean, it just feeds itself in this negative loop.
Yep.
And anyway, that's just so fascinating to me. And I just had that thought of like, how does that connect? And it has to somehow, but
yeah. And I think too, like I said, with that machine that my wife has, you know, she'll tell you which emotions you're kind of overusing. So if you're using a lot of emotions that are coming from the gallbladder, then your gallbladder isn't working as well. And then now you're not secreting the bile to absorb the fat, and now you're gaining more weight. So one of the things you have to really, this life is really all about becoming less reactive. Like, you know, so if you can find a way to emotionally homeostasis yourself whenever you can, then your body functions better. You know, if you're someone who's erratic and you're always overwhelmed or whatever, all your organs are flaring up with all these emotions. Your digestive system is shot. It's just not working anymore because you're technically in fight or flight all the time. And so the fight or flight makes it so that none of your organs really produce what they're supposed to do or do what they're supposed to do, because you're running from a bear, AKA running from your boss, AKA running from your boyfriend. It's like, that's all. Your body doesn't know the difference between running from a bear or running from your boyfriend. It's the same fight or flight response. Yeah. The sympathetic nervous system is going whoop, like crazy. And then your organs are not working properly.
Yeah. And what I don't think you're saying, just to like clarify for people, what I don't think you're saying is you have to be perfect.
Yeah, no.
It's like you don't have to be like this perfect person that's like every thought has to be positive.
No,
It's impossible, right?
It is impossible, yeah.
And we're just talking about how can we be better. And I almost think of it as like a window of tolerance, right?
Sure.
It's like you have this window where it's like there's a space in between that window, a high point and a low point. Low being like a depressive like state, and high being like anxious and like, you know, just a high, right? Yeah. But too high. It's like, let's just stay in that middle ground somewhere, and not even like right in the middle, because it's like a electrocardiogram where they measure the beat of your heart.
Right.
I've said this before, and like when I get on stage and when I talk, is like you don't want to flatline in the middle of the window of tolerance either, because if you flatline an electrocardiogram, what does that mean? It means you're dead.
Yeah.
Right? You don't feel.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, I think, that you're talking about, is how do we remove those heart walls? How do we feel true emotion, but not have the trauma and the negative side? Well, we're not going to be perfect at it. Right. We got to work on it every day. And that's why we're here to work and to grow. But we're intelligent beings. Like we're amazing. We're capable of so much. Right. And I think that what we're capable of becoming in this life, we haven't even imagined yet.
That is the truest statement that's been said here for sure. Because, you know, I always tell people this, that the emotion code, the end game of it, if you were to work with a practitioner over time, is that you become a very less reactive person. But I always tell people, I'm like, if you get sad, tread sad. Don't drown in sadness. You know, tread, kind of the way you tread in a lake, tread in it, because there's a signal. There's a reason why you should feel sad right now. Like someone passed away. Don't be a numb narcissist and not feel it, So tread in sadness, but don't drown in it. See, and I work with people that we have a tendency, if you have an inherited thing going on, post-hypnotic suggestions going on, you're drowning in emotions, and then it ruins your whole day. Your productivity goes way low. So how can you kind of like feel an emotion and then move it behind you and then move? So I tell people, I'm like, when I first meet people, they're like a Velcro bodysuit. It's like when they feel an emotion, it's like they're just like feeling it, I want them to have like a human body trampoline, like let it bounce off you, and then you just keep moving. So I felt the sadness, but it's already moving away from me, and I'm moving forward. And you can be more productive, which then brings more service, which then brings more happiness. That's the key to happiness, is just service with your gifts and talents that God gave you.
Yes. Wow. I think I got one more question before we end this thing, and it has to do with like your relationship with your wife, relationship with friends, people that are close to you again. But I have to say this, it's so interesting how we met. So basically through Instagram.
Yeah.
Which I'm a firm believer, and I say all the time, that your vibe attracts your tribe. Right. And I'm a firm believer that if you feel a certain way about something, get it out. I know you do too.
Yeah.
Because you're big on YouTube, you get stuff out there. You have a lot of great content.
Yeah.
So, one, for the listeners, I think you've got to get your vibe out there, because you're going to attract people that will only help you. Hopefully I can add some value to you someday, but you've added a ton of value just to me today because of your vibe. And somehow we're there in some form. There's a vibe there that we somehow connected, right?
Yeah.
I think that's way cool. But getting to my question, maybe we end with this one. One of the things that I struggle with is, like, in my marriage, is I feel like we touched on it before. Like, if my wife is feeling a negative emotion, I take it on myself.
Right.
I could, and maybe this is a male thing. I could have worked harder. I have pure intentions. Like, I want her to be happy, but like, she struggled with postpartum depression from having kids and things. And so if she's feeling depressed, I start to feel, what am I not doing? What am I not compensating that's making her feel that way? When in reality, even though conceptually I can think like, okay, I may or may not, but most likely not. I'm not choosing that for her. I'm not making her feel that way.
Right.
I start to take it upon myself, which then, hurts me, which then just is this negative loop for us that it can be. Sure. We have to really work on that. We've put a lot of work into that space over the last 3 years, and our marriage has gotten way better because of that. But that's one thing that I would love to get better at. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Right.
How do you be there for your spouse, but not let it hurt you, and then which inevitably will hurt both of you?
Okay, so I can either, I already said great question. I already said fantastic question. So I don't know, amazing question. Okay. I think first of all, what we need to know is that, first of all, I want to give you one of these. So if you get one of, there we go. Okay. So why I want to give you that is because, cheers to the vulnerable man, the reason why we are in a very sticky situation with the earth right now is because we've given too much praise to the strong man and the strong, egotistical, dog-eat-dog world man. And the world's falling apart now because that's not the way. It's almost very Cain-like, like Cain and Abel, because I killed my brother, now I'm free. And the ironic part about his words saying that he's free is that he was not free at all. That he was watched by someone above, and that person above knows what he did. And the blood on the ground cries for his brother, And so, but if you really think about this world right now, it's a lot about kind of like, I'm willing to throw my brother in a pit as long as I get rich while I'm doing it. Like, this is the world we live in.
Yes.
And so, the vulnerable man, well, you just said like, hey, I feel empathy for my wife. It's like, cheers to the vulnerable man, because the vulnerable man is what will reawaken the earth and bring it back to how it's supposed to be, to be in touch with our feminine and male side that we both have inside of us, And so, to answer your question, there's a thing called a shield, and basically, I can give it to you, and I'll give it to you probably after this podcast, but all it is just like, it's a way to block negative energies from affecting you. It only allows love and positive energies in. It's permanent. It covers your whole entire body, right? Now I'll muscle test you and see if it's completely at 100%, But if you're watching this podcast, or if you're listening to it, what you do is you just take your hand, you just kind of like swipe your head, like as if you're combing your hair back. You're saying, I'm now placing a shield around me, which will block all negative energies. It will only allow love and positive energies in. It's permanent. It covers my whole entire body. So then I would muscle test myself. Do I have a shield on? You'll test positive. Even if whoever's listening, if you're muscle testing, I dare you to muscle test yourself and ask you if you now have a shield, and your body will say yes. So then what that does is it will help you, so that way when you're helping out your wife, you don't get depleted by her emotions that she's feeling, because your body automatically rejects the absorption of it, the sponginess of it.
Yes.
And then you can still keep serving her. The cord also is probably not helping out too. Remember I told you it's better to be disconnected. So you may have a cord and you don't have a shield. So there's two things that are working against your favor. So that way you could just kind of still be in tune. One of my favorite, I'll say this last thing here, if it's okay with you.
Everything you've said so far is okay with me, so I would encourage you to keep going.
Okay. So one of the my favorite verses in the Bible is just 2 words, which is he wept, The reason why is because the man who is the author of happiness and peace is also the author of feeling compassion and crying with you when needs be, So this we've been raised by our parents to not show our emotions. But Jesus Christ was quite the opposite. He actually Even though he knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, within minutes, he still cried with both Marys. That's the man I look up to. It's the guy who gets down, gets emotional with them, even though in the way back of his mind, he's like, you guys have no idea. I'm about to say I'm the resurrection and I'm about to raise somebody from the dead, and no one's ever seen anything like this. But he still cried with them, So that's powerful. That's kind of what we were taught in baptism, is to mourn with those who mourn,
Right.
But your issue with the caveat, that's so funny you brought it up. How do I mourn with those who mourn but don't affect me, like while I'm trying to comfort them? So that's
or even when you say like the cord, you talk about that, it's like you snip. I'm like, no, I want to be close to my wife. I want to be one with my wife. Why are you snipping this thing? Like, what's that going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And in the past, what I used to do if I met a couple, I'd be like, let's make you go back to heart cord again. Because if you've had any scuffles between you guys, it may have moved to the gut, but then I could move it back to the heart to heart. What I've learned long term is that your wife's going to have bad days. You're going to have bad days. You can't control that. So the cord's going to move. So it's like you have to constantly move it heart to heart. What's better is just no cord. That way, when you're having a bad day, I can come with my good day vibes and pick you back up again. But if we're both drowning, I can't pick you up.
No. And you can't pour from an empty cup.
And that's why, and there's a whole other thing there. There's a guide I have called the Relationship Resonance program. And it's like a 12-page, pretty hardcore questionnaire. My assistant, Amy, she does the interview for someone for an hour, and it goes deep into love. It goes into like, how are your parents? Do you consider yourself more your mom or your dad? If you were to talk to your ex-girlfriend, what would she tell you your biggest flaw was that you're not willing to admit? Like, it goes deep. And it goes also like, what are some love core beliefs? And I have to muscle test all your love beliefs, negative and positive, and see which one you believe in. One of them might say, I believe I will be with my wife forever or for a long time. Oh, look, you're testing negative for that. Why? It might be because of your dad trauma, what happened with the divorce or whatever, So you may think that you believe something in a relationship, but your subconscious is going like, no, I don't believe that. And as long as you have that fight, there's still going to be that internal battle when you're trying to be a good husband, because your subconscious is going, I know you believe it, but I don't. So as long as I don't believe that, I'm the iceberg at the bottom that sinks the Titanic, that Titanic is going down.
Yes.
And so that's what everyone loves to work on, the top of the, read self-development. That's the top of the iceberg.
Yes.
The Titanic is still going down. So you have to get the bottom stuff. And that's where I go in. I go, how deep does this iceberg go? Remove all that stuff. And now it's congruent. Now there's no iceberg. And the Titanic moves.
And it feels like we naturally move that way in that negative self-talk, and then we just accumulate this baggage that, as you're saying, like, if you just believe that you could accomplish whatever it was, you would be able to do it. It's no question. If you had that 100% on your reading, on your Star Trek reader, then you would be like, you'd be all in. Yeah. I say all the time, like, you just got to get out of your own way, right? You got to get out of and one of the masterminds that I'm a part of called the program, and now we're starting a Utah chapter here, which, by the way, we need to do some stuff there for sure together. And we've talked about that. And now after having this podcast, I'm like, no, 100%, because this is exactly what I believe is that we get in our own way, and men and women and couples and even kids. Yeah. Which we want to be able to bring like fathers and kid and boys and have some of those in our masterminds that we're throwing in Utah too. But to get to my point, you're just helping them get out of their own way. They have that $1 billion asset already, that their brain. Yep. Now you're just teaching them how to attract the right energy and the right flow where they can use this guy, and in ways that we don't even think about with this energy you're talking about, and then just go and live this abundant life.
Yeah, and with one of my mentors said that, like, if we were to see with godly eyes, even the dirtiest, smelliest, most homeless person in the world, if we were to see through godly eyes, we would actually put them on an altar and get on our knees and worship it, because we don't know how magnificent we truly are.
Powerful.
And so I think, like, if we don't know what we're capable of, if we don't know what we're producing, we don't know we have inherited things inside of us, then we're in a way slowly desecrating the temple we all have.
Yeah.
And so it's knowledge really does mean a lot. Like, you have to get the information. Yes. It sounds crazy, but you attracted this information to your life. Like whatever 100%. You're doing right now in your life, let's be real. Let's be real. You brought this into your life.
I believe it 100%.
Okay, like, and so you deserve this information. Not that people who don't, there's just everyone's the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yes, absolutely.
So
and here's the crazy thing about what you're saying is that I believe that with you and me right now, and I kind of already mentioned it, but I also believe that those that will follow this podcast and get on here and share it with other people, all that stuff,
sure.
It's the vibe and the energy that they're feeling that they want to put out to people to help them. And just like you're talking about, you can get on a phone call with somebody in Florida that's trying to, overcome whatever it is that you're, and you're doing the magnet stuff here in Utah, but helping them in Florida.
Right.
It's that same frequency in some way. There's got to be something there that's flowing to them. And so I think that's cool. Is not only have you helped me a lot today, and this has been fun to jam.
Yeah.
But who knows how many people in that tree that will spread out and help just because of the words that you've said today.
I'll share this. There's a platform my wife and I created. If it's okay if I share this, but
please. How do people find you?
Yeah. So there's so we created a platform called Heal, and it took a lot of prayer to come up with that name because it stands for Have Empathy and Love. Okay. And it's a platform we created because a lot of my friends were getting flagged on Facebook and Instagram for sharing wellness hacks. And they were like wellness doctors. And I'd be like, oh, they're coming back after 28 days of being in jail, And I'm like, that's not right. I'm like, who are the fact checkers? Because, there's some people that are literally having vaccine injuries. And if there's a doctor who's giving good advice to help them recover, that shouldn't be fact checked to the point where they're declined a Facebook account, So then I said, I'm going to create a platform where if you enjoy the holistic lifestyle, there's complete freedom. You can say whatever you want. I'll never ban you. Like it's free. And then also in that platform, I got certified in group healing. This week I'm doing empath healing. So like if you're an empath, it's like you have narcissism abuse. You want to be an empowered empath. Maybe you're one of the 5 different types of empaths. It's like I'm doing a 7-day healing where I'm working on them long distance. I even had a psychologist come on and share her tips on there, a friend of mine in England. But every week I have a new thing. Next week might be anxiety, depression, PTSD. Next week is like increase your relationship entanglement with your partner or whatever. So, and every Sunday I do a free healing for everybody who just joins the group. So it's called haveempathyandlove.com. And it's my social media platform to the world. My wife and I made it so that way everyone feels safe there and everyone's healing together. And so you can find us there.
That's awesome. If people want to reach out to you and ask you questions, what's the best way for them to? Obviously, not personal phone number or anything. Like Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, they can go to Instagram. Yeah, they can go to Instagram. I think the best way is if you go on YouTube and just look up Compass Healing. I have 400 videos there, and you can watch some there. But also, like I said, the haveempathyandlove.com. That's the best way to find me there.
Those are the best ways, dude. Thank you so much for coming over. I'm honored to have you at my
thanks for having me here.
Studio in my house, and learned so much today, honestly. And I felt it though. Like as you're talking, it's just like coming out of you, and it's just like, this is raw, this is real, this is exactly what I needed. But I think it's a lot of what everybody needs right now in the world that we live in. So I honor you for that, for being able to put in the work and the time to be able to get where you're at. But I want to stay close to you because I feel like the energy that you bring, and hopefully I can bring some good energy too. But I like to associate with people like you. So thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Glad you contacted me, and grateful that we have a place to share information. And so if you found this valuable and you're listening to this, someone out there that needs help. And I've only noticed that if you bless others, your life will be blessed.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks again, man. And I hope people share this and we get it out there because, like I said, everybody needs it. So thanks, man.